Hello and welcome to Professor Pincushion. In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate on how to sew on a lace applique. You can see my example right here. Also, as an option, we will show you how to create this cutout effect as well. So let's go ahead and get started. For the lace applique, you can either choose something that is pre-made, like this one here, or if you have some lace that you would like to use, you can actually cut out a design in the lace. You can see this one is just a flower with some leaves, and I cut this out of lace that I had at home. Of course, there's fancier lace than you can use. This is very casual, but this one is good if you have a casual, really cute top and you want to add some lace to it, as this one is a little bit more formal and more elegant. So there's different options that you can do. You're also going to need, I would recommend, some embroidery scissors. These scissors are smaller than the dressmaker. They're about 4 inches, and these give you a really precise cut. So they're handy to have when doing this type of work. Also, you're going to need a hand sewing needle. And this is a small needle. It's a sharp, but you want something that can do the finer work, so something on the smaller size. For thread, I would recommend using silk thread. Unless you're doing a casual one, you can probably get away using all-purpose. But if you're doing something a little bit more high-end, then I would recommend the silk thread. And last but not least, I have my straight pins here, and these are pleating pins, or you can use silk pins. Now I'm just going to be pinning the middle of the applique to my fabric, so I'm not really worried about holes, but because this part is very delicate, I want to make sure I'm not going to use something that's going to ruin them. So definitely use silk or pleating pins, something that's finer. First step is you're going to position the applique with where you want it. Once you have it in place, go ahead and grab a couple of your straight pins. You really don't need that many of them because you're just basically holding it into place. So I'm not pinning around the perimeter. Instead, I'm going to just carefully pin it in the middle. And you can see I have some beads and some sequins here, so I'm just trying to avoid those. And just get it into position. So it's just holding it in the middle. When I go ahead and sew it, whatever section I'm sewing, I'm just going to hold it with my finger and kind of hold that into place. But it shouldn't move from that position. Once you have it pinned, go ahead, stand back from your garment so you can take a look at it and see if you like the position or adjust it. But we're going to be getting a little bit closer now so I can show you how to hand sew it into place. All right, so now it's time to start sewing it. Now I just want to point out, if you do make your own applique, you make sure that you choose a fabric that's not going to fray a lot. You don't want to do all the work and then all of a sudden your applique is fraying on you. I'm going to go ahead and sew this by hand. Because our applique is really delicate, you want to keep that delicate look, so I think it's best to hand sew this. You can see I'm using a contrasting thread. This is just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. It's definitely going to look a lot nicer if you use a matching thread. So I'm coming up from underneath, just pretty close to the edge of my applique. You can see it's right on that border. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the fabric outside of the border of the applique, but then come up right on the inside of that border again, pretty close to where my first stitch came out. As I'm pulling it through, I have this loop here from my thread, and I'm going to go through that loop. We're going to be doing a blanket stitch. I'm going to do this exact same thing again, grabbing a little bit of the fabric outside, coming up inside the applique but close to the edge, and I'm going to go through the loop. So now I'm just going to go a little ways away from that, doing the same thing, grab a little bit of the fabric, a little bit of the applique, and then I'm going to go through the loop. Just make sure that your loop thread isn't twisted. And then I'm going to move around again, just a little ways away from that, a little bit of fabric, a little bit of applique, go through the loop. And I'm going to do this around the whole perimeter of my applique. I finished sewing around my whole applique here, and you can obviously see my blue thread, so it would look a lot nicer if I used matching. Here's the front, here's the back. You can kind of see my outline here. So it's better to do smaller stitches closer together so we're not seeing as much thread on the wrong side, because you want it to look as nice on the back side of your fabric as it looks on the front side. If you want, you could leave it just like this and be done, or we can do cutouts, which means that we're cutting away the fabric behind the applique so the fabric is not going to be there and we can actually see through the applique. So I'll show that part next. If you want to do a cutout, you're going to look at the wrong side of the fabric where your applique is. Now you want to be very careful with your applique. You're going to be pulling the fabric away from the applique. So I'm grabbing a little bit of the applique, pulling the fabric away from it. I'm going to hold this fabric, grab my embroidery scissors, and then just do a little snip. We need to be very careful that we're not actually cutting the applique because you just need to cut the fabric. So now that I have my hole, I can stick my scissors in there and start cutting away the fabric that's on the inside. So I'm cutting along the shape of my stitching and being careful, again, not to cut the applique and also not to actually cut my stitches. You want to get as close as you can get without cutting your stitches. So we're cutting all of this away from it. I went ahead and cut away as much of my fabric as I could. If you're worried about your fabric fraying on the inside, what you can do is use a little of this fabric sealant just to put on the edges, and that should help. Let's go ahead and take a look at it on the right side though. And there you can see my hand right underneath that. So it came out really nice. So you can see it is a little time consuming, but the results are very elegant. New tutorials are released weekly, so please subscribe to be notified of the next release. Make sure to check out our other videos and visit ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 200 sewing video tutorials, including our exclusive premium content. Our premium membership is only $5 a month for unlimited access and only available at ProfessorPincushion.com. Also, don't forget to download our mobile app for videos on the go. Thanks for watching.